Yeah, and I mean, what I'm doing, I'm attempting to abolish music, so that's why we're going to be destroying actually nearly 300 instruments. We just counted them this morning.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
yeah, we're going to be dropping nearly 300 things off of the balcony beside the main entrance to the school.
On October 20th, 2022, Eliot Burk premiered his piece titled The Final Recital, located at CalArts. The recital displayed the sounds of hundreds of instruments getting destroyed. On top of it all, Eliot has hung numerous posters around the school with various messages on why music needs to be abolished. Today we sit down with Eliot to discuss what is really going on. Welcome to the JoeDock Hour. I am your host, JoeDock, and with us today is composer, performer, artist, instrumentalist, Mr. Eliot Burk.
Hey, thanks.
Eliot, how are you doing today?
I'm doing all right, you know. I'm very busy planning for my performance tomorrow, but it's nice to take a moment and just chat.
Yes, if Eliot is actually having a performance tomorrow called
It's just the final recital.
The Final Recital.
We will abolish music, and there will never be another recital again after we abolish music.
What provoked you to want to abolish music at all points now?
I mean, I don't know how long of an answer you want me to give, but I think there are countless ways in which music makes people's lives worse. And I put some of those ways up on the scrolls up around campus. But in general, I think music is unquestionably good. And that's how people treat it. And because of that, it can be really bad for people. They treat it as this something to worship, almost to sacrifice themselves completely to. And I think these kind of things, which you can't even consider to be a mixed bag, it's taboo. In fact, people have been super upset that I would say that music is something that should end. I think those are some of the worst things, actually, the most destructive and harmful things.
So, and you think that those bad qualities of music overshadow the good parts of music, and therefore we can't have any music at all?
Well, I think often the good parts are quite overstated because people are coerced into propagandizing for music, and music is quite a lot like a drug, in fact. And I think that the main good quality is it gets you high in a certain way. It interacts with our brains like an opiate, and in that way, all of us musicians are just completely addicted to music. And I think this is can be a problem for many musicians. Obviously, I'm not against people using drugs. It's possible to do that responsibly, but I think that we should treat, if we're going to have music at all, which I think the world might be better with no music, we should treat it responsibly and acknowledge the harm that it's causing people.
In promotion for this piece, you have been hanging up these scrolls around campus that really go from how music is how it is a waste of time, how it destroys our body. It's a hub for drug addicts and self-torture, totalitarian.
Yes, I think music, as we understand it in the United States, stems from a totalitarian impulse to control large groups of people. And if you look at the history of very totalitarian governments in Europe, like the Fascist Party, a lot of their forerunners said that music should be there was a city-state in Italy called the Impresa di Fiume, and they said the fundamental principle of government is music. and the constitution of the fascist government was directly based on their constitution. Another forerunner in Italy, the Futurists, who were like an avant-garde art group, who did like disruptive art and believed in like violence and technological progress and immediacy. Their manifesto starts with singing, it climaxes with singing, and it ends with singing. And then if you look, of course, at Nazi Germany, they loved music. They loved Beethoven and Wagner and used this frequently in their propaganda. And it's so funny that like we as Americans also love Beethoven and Wagner. If you go to a music school in the United States, you're highly likely to have to study their music and learn it in a fairly high level of detail. Or Bach too. I mean, I think people tend to focus on Bach because the Germans didn't focus on him, but he's still just another German composer. And like, I think that this is creating like this icon in all of our subconsciousness, which is like this white genius. And like, that is like deeply embedded with what the word music means and how it actually exists in America. Maybe not like the ideal of what we would want it to be, but like, I think that if we want music to be something different, like we have to do more than just try and redefine the word for ourselves. Like we have to have something entirely new. That's why I would like to abolish music, because I think it's too caught up with all this harmful historical baggage.
Okay, so you one of the posters says, in music that abolishes all adventure, the only adventure left is to abolish music. What is an adventure in music for you?
Well, abolishing music. But I could talk about this quote more if you'd like, in a
talk
more
about that
general
quote
way.
more?
This is based on a quote from the riots in 1968 in Paris. And the original graffiti was, in a society that has abolished all adventure, the only adventure left is to abolish society. Which I think this kind of rings true. I think that like in the commodification of excitement, like our agency is taken away. And like what adventure is you having agency in your own life. That's what I think adventure is. It's like you get to explore the world. You get to decide the direction of your life. And I think music as this imposed cultural commonality on us as individuals takes away our ability to have adventures. And like if you have to dedicate yourself to music, you are denying yourself the possibility of adventure.
Damn. And that was hung up in Paris?
It was originally graffiti in 1968 in Paris, and there's a lot of different graffitis, and you can find them online. And it was a really interesting sort of riot because of the cultural activity that was happening in Paris at the time, like with the Situationists and various Marxist groups. It was like, I just think it's a particularly interesting event that happened.
Yeah, where did you come across that?
Are you ready for a little bit of a story?
Yeah, please tell stories.
Yeah, in 2012, I did an art piece called a year-long performance piece.
Mm-hmm.
And the structure of this piece was that anybody could direct the piece. Anything could be a part of the piece. They could include any instructions as part of the piece, and anyone could perform it. And I dedicated myself to perform this piece for the entire year of 2012. So this was my entire life. It was maybe not even really a performance piece, but just an alternative lifestyle. And in that, there was a part of it where I had to recreate these graffitis in the town I was living, which is Isla Vista, California, near UC Santa Barbara, and put them around town in places that I thought were interesting.
Wow. So for that entire year, you dedicated yourself to that certain piece.
Well, yeah, I mean, there was a couple of ways it could have ended, I thought.
Mm-hmm.
Either I would get arrested
Yeah.
because I was willing to do anything that was in the piece. I would die from doing something in the piece. That obviously didn't happen.
No.
Or someone would direct me to end the piece at some point, which happened on April 1st. If I remember, it was one of my best friends. Josh Redman, and he meant it as a joke because he thought I was so dedicated to this thing, there's no way I would end it. But I was taking it extremely seriously and extremely literally, and it said end the performance on April 1st. So as soon as I read that, the performance was over.
Wow. That's intense.
Yes.
That's a very intense way of making art. One of the posters is just a list of dates.
Yeah.
What do those dates mean?
Well, those are the birth and death days of the instruments for the recital. At least the ones that I had when I made that poster. I have a lot more now. So those are the instruments that the people who bought them got them, and then the other day is tomorrow.
So those instruments will also just die tomorrow.
Well, they won't be functional instruments after tomorrow. It's possible you could revive them, but
yeah, okay. And then what was the list of all the places?
Those are the places those instruments are from. Their home.
Oh, okay.
Their hometowns.
So it's like an obituary kind of.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fun.
It's a sad day.
Is it gonna be a sad day for you though? Or are you excited?
Yeah. I have no idea how I'll feel. I'm excited right now.
Wow.
But I mean, it makes me sad too. Like, it's been incredibly costly to get that many instruments, and I'm literally throwing it away. So like, and like also like some of the instruments are super beautiful, and I'm attached to them, even though like I bought them to destroy them. So yeah, I am sad.
Let me ask you about you personal. So what did you study in your undergrad?
Music.
You studied music. Anything specific? Music
composition and theory.
Okay. And so, what was your relationship like with practicing at that time?
I think that like...
Were you always on this grind set of just like, fuck practicing?
Honestly, yes. That's why I went into composition, because like in composition, like I can go on my instrument and improvise and play what I want to play, and like not feel like I'm being forced and confined into some box that doesn't really match up with what I want.
Yeah.
I still do practice a lot. I still practice a lot. Like if I have a big difficult piece, I will practice, and I have to.
You know, I mean, like, do you have fun when you're making music?
Sometimes, yeah. It depends. And sometimes it's hard but satisfying work. And sometimes it's hard but it's not satisfying work.
So, like, what part of the process is fun for you? Being creative and thinking about the ideas? Or
No. Yes. I mean, that's fun. But it's not as fun as playing music with other people. And honestly, that's the only way I've ever been able to do it. And when I've practiced, it's because I'm playing a difficult piece with some people and I don't want to let them down.
Wow.
But
so collaboration is your sort of...
Yeah, but I mean more specifically playing music with other people, not just collaboration generally.
Yeah, it doesn't matter with who.
I feel like there's a special type of like wordless communication that can happen, which is really great. I don't know. And also, yeah.
But like,
actually.
So, but like the reason that like, you know, I feel like people practice so much is because they're ingrained with this mentality that like if you don't practice, like you're gonna be mediocre at your instrument. You're not gonna, get good gigs. You're not gonna, be a more rounded musician. So it's like if we abolish all practicing, are we just gonna live in a world of just mediocre music? It's
no,
like,
well, I think we should.
That?
I think that what is good is we define what is good. And
but
I think personally, I love it when people try and hit a unison rhythmically, and they're like, "Well, that's so interesting. Like, why can't we value like the interesting things that happen when people don't practice?"
Yeah.
Like,
but do you think that like we already have been predisposed to the original sin? Like we all know, like all 9 of Beethoven's symphonies exist. We all have the standard. We can't go back in time and just pretend that doesn't exist. You know, so it's like. Obviously, like, I mean, is it even possible to redefine what is good at this point?
Yes. I mean, no, of course not. But like, I don't care what's possible. I'm doing a million things that are clearly impossible and like obviously impossible. And like, that is why it's interesting. Yeah. If we had possible goals, the world would never get better. You need an impossible goal to improve the world, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And speaking of Beethoven, I have a lot of thoughts about Beethoven, and I think our engagement of Beethoven now is really different than what Beethoven was when those symphonies were premiered. Like, they had to start and stop multiple times on the premieres of his symphonies. Like, but now we practice these pieces to death, killing them. Imagine how exciting it would be to go to see a Beethoven symphony and be like, can they even make it through this? Yeah. That would be, like, I'm thrilled just thinking about that. Like, if people were courageous enough to do that and vulnerable enough to do that in front of an audience, that would be so much better. But we've destroyed it in our construction of music, and Beethoven is now just this horrific thing.
I think you're a really funny person. I think that you have a funny self-awareness about you. Like you're not taking yourself that seriously, are you?
Well, it would if it is funny, and if I am funny, it's
Mhm.
not funny to explain a joke, first off, and secondly, yeah, this whole thing. It's not. I think it's good to be misunderstood.
Yeah.
Because it's the start of a dialogue, like
Mhm.
we're having right now, and
Yes.
I think that I could have put up some very nuanced posters about how like, oh, like
Come to my recital.
you come like to, take care of
tomorrow.
yourself, like only practice 30 minutes at a time, then take a water break. But no one would be, that would be completely boring, a complete waste of time, completely ignorable, completely pointless. It would change nothing. And also I mean everything seriously on these posters.
Yeah.
And I think maybe it is funny because it's like, I mean, people find like 433 quite funny.
Mhm.
I mean, I find that piece is actually, I think, way funnier than what I'm doing. Like
Mm.
John Cage, hilarious.
You think it's funny?
Yeah, he's a good comedian.
Wow. Well, you actually referenced John Cage and someone else who
Pauline Oliveros. So definitely don't forget Pauline Oliveros.
yeah.
Just as important as John Cage, if not more important, honestly, especially at CalArts, but like all throughout the United States.
And they were trying to do like total listening.
Pauline Oliveros' philosophy is about deep listening,
Yeah.
and this has like a multitude of meanings. And I really encourage you to read her writings if you're interested in it. But it basically means close attention to your experience of hearing, and like the ambiguity of that, and allowing yourself to experience it in all like the different ways. And I guess I think that despite what she describes about deep listening, I think this is incompatible with music. Because ultimately, when you are using up your attention to make a sound, you can't be using that attention to listen.
And you think that, do you think that those are influences on your music, especially this piece?
Absolutely. I think a lot of what I do, and artistically in general, like I feel like John Cage and Fluxus, I feel like what they did was never reckoned with. Like people were like, oh, wow, this is crazy. Now we can do whatever we want. But I don't think John Cage was not about doing what you want, actually. He was about denying doing what you want and like engaging with like our experience of the world and of art in a way that like serves us intentionally. And I don't think it is this free for all that has like come out of it, come out of John Cage's influence.
Wow.
Yeah, so I do consider it an influence.
Mm-hmm. I got a question for you. If you were an animal, what animal would you be?
Well, I am an ant, actually.
You're an ant.
I am an ant.
Okay. How?
I understand you would be confused.
Yeah.
And I
no.
like that also.
When did you realize you were an ant?
Well, it was about 6 years ago. I was lying in bed with my fiance, Hannah, and there were some ants on the wall. And then I told her that I am an ant.
Mm.
And I've stuck to that point ever since then.
How do you think that CalArts is going to... Do you think that anything is going to change after your piece for the institution?
No, people are way too apathetic. But I'd be fine with any kind of change. In fact...
What do you mean that people are apathetic?
I mean, like the administrators and the students, people would rather not change. So despite me desperately wanting things to change and like acting a very extreme way to try and get things to change, I'm only one person. Yeah. So I don't think CalArts will change after this.
Mm-hmm. And then after you destroy these instruments, music has been abolished.
No, I will fail tomorrow.
You will fail tomorrow.
Obviously. No one else wants to abolish music but me.
Mm. And you have no hope for that. You don't think that music can be abolished tomorrow?
No.
Wow.
I'm pragmatic and realistic. I mean, I know that I'm like talking about very idealistic
Music
things
is going down
when I'm
tomorrow.
talking about like changing the way we interact with each other in America or in the world. Like, I'm just one person. Like, I cannot change it. Like, we all have to like come together and come to some kind of consensus democratically in order to change the society. And like, I would not want to impose myself on everybody. That's why like the banners have all these reasons why I think music should be abolished.
Yeah.
If I wanted to just force people to stop playing music, I would threaten them with violence. But I'm not going to do that. That's not what I want our society to be. I don't want people to be going around threatening people to do things. That's shit.
No, that is.
So.
I think we said what we have to say quickly. What advice would you give to the people listening? Quickly.
Live your life for yourself. Do not let any idea or any other person stop you from pursuing what you want to do with yourself.
That is beautiful. All right. Thank you so much, Eliot.
Thank you, Joe.
This has been beautiful. Thank you, JoeDock Hour.